So if you're someone who's clicked on this video, you're probably a person who struggles to put themselves first and has always struggled to put themselves first. You probably have no idea what it even looks like to put yourself first in your own life. In this video, I kind of want to just discuss my own story and kind of everything I've been through in my own experience, because I was also once a person who struggled to put themselves first, and kind of what it even means to put yourself first in life. Because I think a lot of you guys have this misconception of what it actually means to put yourself first. And what is costing you when you put yourself first is that it's costing you to live a life of fear. It's costing you to live a life of suppression. It's causing you to live a life of constant suffering. And you probably have started to kind of come to that realization. You know, you've allowed yourself to settle in certain situations, relationships, and environments in which you don't really want to be in, or you feel powerless in, you feel like you have no voice in. And that's all because you haven't learned to actually show up for yourself in a way and just be there for you and, you know, be your authentic self and actually express that. I think first things first, when it comes down to learning how to show up for you and why a lot of you guys struggle with it, is that you have lived with a lot of guilt and you kind of try and take responsibility for the things that you aren't responsible for. You know, a lot of times in the past, I used to feel guilty for making people feel some type of way, or if my decisions or my actions or my feelings would make somebody else feel some type of way. And what I had to learn was that in some situations, there's always going to be someone that gets hurt. You know, there's always going to be some times where, you know, either I get hurt from not speaking up for myself, or somebody else gets hurt because I did express myself and I did express how I felt. And I had to learn to stop taking responsibility, because I also have to understand like how other people interpret my authenticity and my feelings and, you know, my perspective and things like that. I can't be responsible for, because everybody has their own different filter. Everybody has their own different past experiences. Everybody has their own mindset in which they see, you know, my words, or in which they perceive how I treat them, or my perspective and stuff on them. You know, somebody can think me canceling plans with them because I'm genuinely tired, or I genuinely, something popped up, emergency popped up. You know, they can interpret that, you know, as in, oh, I just wanted to cancel plans with them, or I don't like them and things like that and stuff like that. Or they could believe, oh, he's leaving me to go hang out with somebody else, he ditched me, yada yada. Like, there's different ways in which people can interpret things, but I can't take responsibility for that. And I think a lot of you guys, when it comes to putting yourself first, is that, you know, you get upset, or you feel some type of way. You don't get upset, but you feel some type of way when, you know, you see your actions or your feelings make other people feel some other type of way. And I think sometimes you have to realize, like, you can't satisfy everybody. Like, there's going to be at points in their life where people get disappointed. There's going to be points in times where people don't agree necessarily with the decisions you make. There's going to be points in your life where other people might think one thing is best for you, but then you think something else is best for you. And so y'all go your opposite ways. And so people think like, oh, they internalize it essentially. And it's like, you have to learn to let go of all those things. And I think I wrote down is that, yeah, you can't make yourself responsible for other people's feelings, basically, because, again, you either hurt yourself by not showing up for yourself. So let's say, you know, you either hurt yourself by not saying how other people's actions had made you feel, you know, whether that made you feel, you know, you might hear somebody say something towards you and you might be like, oh, I don't like you saying that, or I don't like the way you do this, I don't like the way you do that, because, you know, if you're gonna do this, I don't want to be around you. Like, you always feel this type of responsibility for how they might react to that and stuff like that. And you just can't take responsibility for it, because, again, you have to learn to show up for yourself, because you're the only person that oftentimes can. You know, if you never express yourself, then how can people ever know how to really interact with you? And it's like, yes, some people will accommodate to how their actions make you feel, and some people will just want nothing to do with you. You know, that brings me right into my second point, which is fear. And so a lot of you guys fear showing up for yourself or putting yourself first, because you fear what will come as a result of putting yourself first. So a lot of you guys fear losing people. A lot of you guys fear people not accepting you. A lot of you guys fear how people might perceive you, or what people might think of you, and things like that. And you really have to get to a place where you don't care. I know that sounds just like basic and cliche, but it's really like a firm understanding of who you are. And it's really the ability to be on your own and understand when you're showing up for yourself and not caring what it costs you because you showed up for yourself. You know I had to get to a place where it was like, yeah, being me is gonna cost me the ideal life I might want. You know, learning to understand like not everybody's gonna accept me when I show self-respect to myself. Not everybody's gonna accept me when, you know, I say no to them. Not everybody's gonna accept me when I don't bend over and just do whatever they tell me to do, essentially. You know, you have to understand like being you is not gonna be accepted by everybody. And you have to get to a place where you're okay with that. I think a lot of that comes with learning how to be alone, learning to not internalize other people's decisions towards you, not revolving your life around getting accepted by other people, and really being who you want to be, being the person who brings you joy, being the person that brings you happiness and things like that. You know, being myself and, you know, knowing my goals, my dreams, my inspirations and things like that, the morals and standards in which I live by, it makes me have to cut certain people off. It makes me have to make certain decisions that people may not necessarily agree with. You know, that means, hey, I don't want to hang out every weekend. That means, hey, I want to focus on getting these tasks done opposed to going out and having fun. That might mean I have this specific boundary in my life, or I respect myself in this way to where I don't allow you to say these certain things to me. It's like, you know, I understand who I am for myself and what boundaries I want to have set, basically. And so with that, not everybody's going to be willing to accommodate to that. You know, when people see, hey, they can't control you, when people see, hey, you're not always going to agree with them, when people see, hey, you're not going to always be the person that they want you to be, when people see, hey, they can't change you, or you don't care or value the things in which they value, you know, some people just aren't going to want to deal with you. And you got to learn to understand, like, you know, that's just what comes with life. And that's why it's so important that you learn to not depend on other people and need other people, because they're not guaranteed. You know, as you grow, as you change in life, as you learn to show up for you and whatever you value in the stage of your life, you know, you might be valuing and prioritizing school. You might be valuing your goals or your career and stuff like that. And it's like, as you do those things, other people are just going to come in and out of your life. Some people are going to fall out of your life. And it's not something that you can prevent, essentially, because if you try so hard to prevent it, then that's when you start settling, and that's when you stop showing up for you and you stop expressing yourself. You know, it might be something as simple as you just had a long day at work and stuff like that, and you just no longer want to go out. On the back end of you saying you no longer want to go out or canceling plans or something, somebody may not invite you anymore, or they may start distancing themselves and things like that. And it's like one of those things where you just got to become okay with that, whether they interpret it as you don't want anything to do with them, or whether they interpret it as, oh, they're just tired and things like that. Like, everybody's going to have their own different opinions based off their own different experiences, whether they relate to you and things like that. And you just have to learn to not take responsibility and try and control all of those things. And so my next point is not meeting other people's expectations. I feel like a lot of the reasons a lot of you guys struggle to show up for yourself is that people had put expectations on you, or they had put labels on you for the type of person that you're supposed to be. So a lot of you guys have been labeled as nice. You've been labeled as a leader. You've been labeled as this type of person, that type of person. And you always feel this obligation to meet that expectation or meet that label or fit into that image that you have maybe placed on yourself, or the image that might have been placed onto you. And I've seen this in real time with just friends around me. It's like they're so afraid of going against the image or the narrative that people have essentially written for them. And it's like, as long as you try and always fit into that narrative, you're going to find yourself sacrificing showing up for you in the areas or the times where you need yourself the most, essentially. So for some of you guys' life, that looks like, you know, never being able to process your own emotions, your own feelings, and your own problems of which you're going through, because you're always trying to help others, or you're always trying to show up for other people. You're always trying to be the person who people expect you to be, and things like that. Or you might have been labeled as this nice person, and so anytime you have to show any type of anytime you have to go against being a nice person, as in you have to set a boundary, you have to tell somebody no, you know, talk in a specific tone, or you really have to, you know, you have to show up with some oomph to you. You know, it may not be in the nicest way. You gotta be mean at sometimes in your life. You know, a lot of you guys are so against that, and you're like, you get so caught up in your mind, you know, I don't want people to think this of me based off this one decision, off this one action. You know, that goes against me being a nice person. That goes against me being a leader. That goes against me being a smart person. That goes against me being someone who really is focused on school. You know, you're so attached to this image and these labels that have been placed on you or that you might have placed on yourselves that you try so hard to not step outside of them. But at the cost of you trying so hard to always fit into those images, it's costing you showing up for yourself, showing up for your own problems, showing up for your own emotions. You know, a lot of you guys have placed these labels on you as, oh, I need to be this big dude. I need to be a dude that's emotionless. Being emotional, it makes you look powerless or makes you look weak and stuff like that. And on the back end, it's costing you, hey, you real messed up. You have no way of feeling emotions. You have no idea how to handle your emotions. At some point, you're gonna boil over because you suppress so much to the point that you're like a volcano waiting to erupt. It's like, bro, you gotta learn to understand, like, you're your own person. You gotta learn to show up for you and understand that it doesn't mean anything about you. You know, knowing how to handle your emotions, process your emotions doesn't make you any less of a man. Just because you cry doesn't make you less of a man. Just because, you know, you understand when you want to show up for yourself in some type of way doesn't mean anything about you, essentially. So my next point is being misinterpreted and misunderstood, which kind of goes hand in hand with that last point. It's like people are going to understand me however they interpret my actions, basically. So some people might see you being single as you're unattractive, or you don't know how to get women, or you don't know how to get men, or there's something wrong with you, basically. Some people might interpret you not valuing going out partying and drinking as you being boring, you being lame. And so the world will try its hardest to place all these labels onto you, and you have to learn to become okay essentially with being misunderstood. You know, me not having a bunch of women in my life doesn't mean I'm unattractive or I don't know how to talk to women or things like that. It really just means I don't value that in my life at this point in time. Me not going out and partying and drinking and not caring to, you know, waste time doesn't mean I'm lame or I'm boring or that there's something wrong with me. It means my focus is going otherwhere and I have more important things to be worried about. You know, you have to become okay with not trying to constantly explain yourself, constantly trying to prove who you are, essentially, because again, that takes away from you being able to just show up the way that you want to show up, you showing up in the way that's best for you at this current state of your life. Because I think you really have to ask yourself, like, is it worth proving myself to other people on the back end, it costing me showing up how I need myself to show up? You know, is it worth going out and partying and drinking just to prove a point, or having all these women in your life just to prove a point on the back end of you not being able to invest into your schoolwork or something like that, or invest into your career, or invest into your business or your job or your self-improvement, whatever your focus is? Is it worth you having all these women in your life and you having to respond and reply and, you know, do things that might be outside of yourself morally or that you don't really want to do? You know, whether that's sleeping around, whether that's trying to waste a bunch of money on dates and stuff like that. Like, is it worth all those things on the back end, like trying to prove a point on the back end of you not being able to put all your focus on yourself, of you not being able to, you know, build the habits you're trying to build and things like that? Like, is it truly worth it to just not be misunderstood? Like, I would rather be misunderstood than try to be understood in a way that isn't really even me. And so you really have to ask yourself, like, is any of that worth it? And you kind of have to just learn to let all of that go. And based off those, 5 points I just listed out, you have to learn to let all of them go. You have to learn to let go of the guilt. You have to learn to let go of the fear. You have to learn to let go of other people's expectations. You have to learn to let go of the labels people have placed on you and being misunderstood. I think a lot of this stuff just stems from learning to say no. I think when you really learn to say no, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, and I'm going to be that person regardless of what other people might think about me or how other people might interpret it, and learning to fully own that. You know, I think that's how you learn to live a life that's more authentic to your own, and really show yourself that self-love by being who you are regardless of what other people think around you, and understanding, like, Yeah, it's going to cost me. Yeah, I might lose some people, but I'm so comfortable in who I am and showing up for myself and doing what's best for me and doing what brings me happiness, peace, and joy in life. I don't care what it costs me to do that, essentially. I think that's the place you have to get to, and it's just learning to say no and living with the results of it. I feel that as you say no more and more and more in life, you get to a point where it's numb. Originally or initially it might feel like, dang, I feel really guilty about that, or I feel some type of way about that. But as you continuously show up saying no when you want to say no, when you actually want to say it, then, you kind of get numb to it. At least that's how I am. I'm numb to it at this point because I stopped taking responsibility. I stopped trying to meet other people's expectations, and I became okay with being misunderstood. And, I also want you guys to understand that, like, saying no doesn't mean you have no morals or you have no standards or you have no heart and things like that. I think you just have to learn to have good judgment. When you can save other people's feelings, whether that's the tone in which you say it in, whether that's the amount of context or information you give to someone, give as much clarity as you can to certain people. What you can prevent, what you have the ability to possibly prevent, then go about trying to prevent it. I think you also have to have good judgment when certain things are out of your control, and sometimes you just have to make decisions and let things be. And I say that to say, like, don't go out here being a jerk and stuff like that, but sometimes it's going to come off as being a jerk or being a mean person and stuff like that. But it's like you have no control of it. Like, sometimes that's just the choice or the decision that you had to make in that moment because it was what was best for you. But I appreciate you guys for tuning into the video. I hope you learned a thing or two. Be sure to go cop a hoodie on willkeepitreal.com. Use code WKeepItReal at checkout for 20% off. Be sure to join up on the Discord, like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notices. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.